Thank you, Chris. I'm just gonna start it because there's
Yeah.
like no good way to start.
Are you recording?
Yeah, it's
Oh, okay,
recording.
cool.
I'm doing a triple check. Yeah, it's recording. So we'll just start it sometime right around now. Um, okay, this is Chris Love. He is the man who was the officiant at our wedding, and I'm really excited that he's here today. He's um just a really precious man of God who has a really, I believe, important calling on his life and a message that he carries, and he shares a lot of it on his Facebook right now. And yeah, and I've just been kind of following along for the last couple of years, like, cheering on his Facebook posts because they're just really, yeah, I just see your heart for your pastor's heart being played out on your Facebook page is what I've seen. And just like in with your words, encouraging God's people to walk into freedom. And that's why I wanted to invite you on here. So, let's start at the beginning. How do you guys know each other?
The crazy thing is, I've known Josh since he was middle school age. We used to do something at the church we would eventually serve together called TJF. It was a Friday night outreach ministry, and and Josh would come. And I remember I connected with Josh because he liked football, and which that was cool. We didn't know each other that well, but then later on, Josh would really get plugged not only to the I mean, not only like in the youth ministry, but wanting to serve. And he came on as begin with as an intern, just wanting to serve and do whatever he could. And that's really, I think, where our relationship really began. Is we connected from there because we were seeing each other really every day, and just, I mean, doing ministry together. We were doing everything together. So, and then with us being a football, both loving football, that helped us connect. And Josh would come over, and we had some. I mean, honestly, I miss those days. We had some really, really cool times over the years hanging out and just. I mean, I don't like the expression "do a life." It sounds kind of cheesy, but we really we did.
Yeah. No, yeah, I'd say Chris was my, I guess, like first real youth pastor. I didn't really go to church much. I had, like Chris said, they had a outreach that was every Friday, I think at first, or at some point it was every Friday, but yeah, like every Friday we would go to church, and I think it was like once a month at some point, but would do that. And then, I had a middle school dating relationship with somebody, and they would not bring me to church on Sundays, but they brought me to Wednesday night. So in eighth grade, I went to Wednesday night some, and Chris is the youth pastor at the church. And then I, like I said, I wasn't really involved. My family, we didn't go to church that regularly. And so like after that dating relationship stopped, and TGIF stopped, I didn't see Chris again, except for maybe like once or twice for like probably 5 years. And then I came to Christ when after my senior year of high school, and then started going to the church. And then Chris actually was at the time a lead pastor at a sister church that was connected to the church that we originally met at. And then I eventually started interning, and they brought Chris back as the youth pastor, and then we got to serve together in the youth ministry for what was that, like, I don't know, like 3 or 4 years, something like that. And then God called us to different places after that, and we've still remained close and connected ever since. And yeah, like Becca said, he officiated our wedding. So and it's still close. Still obviously talk, hang out, or not, we don't hang out as much, really far away, but still talk.
Especially during football season.
Yeah.
It's great that you're wearing your football shirt. It's all meant to be because this is where it all started. The rivalry. Cool. Thank you guys for sharing. So, during the time when you guys were serving together at church, there was a really important, from what I've heard from Josh, stuff that happened where you guys were, I don't exactly know how it all started or kind of how it unfolded, but I'm kind of looking forward to hear about it kind of like for the first time from both of you guys right now, of just like kind of what unfolded with discovering the grace of God together and walking into that. And yeah, Chris, do you want to go ahead and share first about that and your experience with that?
As Josh mentioned a moment ago, I was before I would I when I first let me backtrack. When I first I was a youth pastor here in Dothan, where I'm living now, and God opened the door for me to go to Panama City. And when I first went, is when I would meet Josh initially. I was a middle school pastor, doing sixth through eighth. Well, I would do that for about 3 or 4 years, and then I would do a little brief stint where I worked with adults. Well, then after that, God opened the door. I went to a sister church and served as their pastor for about 3.5 years. To kind of keep this short, God again kind of called me back to student ministry, and I came back then and really started working with the overall ministry, like sixth through college. Well, when I first came back, I I really thought it was going to be a smooth transition because I knew a lot of people already from being there. It was totally different. It was the hardest thing at that point in my life because I felt really, I've always wanted to feel accepted, and it's hard for me if I don't feel accepted. Well, I came back and immediately I felt like I was unwanted. Uh, and then I started having bad feelings because the church I left, or that small church, I felt like I left a lot of things undone. And then I started questioning, did I do the right thing? And and so, along with feeling unwanted, like the students didn't want me, then almost everything I tried to do there, and as I began doing student ministry again, just seemed to fail. And I just really, really reached a low point. And then to kind of pile things on top, I was at the point in my Christian life where I couldn't stop sinning. The more I tried, the worse it got. And I'd made so many promises and commitments to God that I wasn't telling people this. I just felt like a complete failure. Well, in the midst of that, really being in a very dark season, a guy in our church came by one day to talk about how he felt someone in the church was being legalistic. And at the point, I thought I knew what that term meant. I really associated legalism with you only read a certain Bible translation, you only dress this way or whatever, which I mean, that's parts of legalism, but I didn't understand how big it can be and how easy it is for us to get really snared in it. Well, he gave me a book. It was a short book called Two Roads and Two Rooms. And I started reading that book, and it was like sometimes you come across something where it just directly speaks to your heart, and it was that way. It was, like I said, it was a short book that really was more kind of like an allegory. I read that probably 3 or 4 times, and it just opened my heart to see that the the allegory there being two roads and two rooms. The first road and first room really describe legalism, where you're trying to earn God's acceptance, His pleasure, His approval. It described me to a T. That's what I've been doing my whole Christian life, is trying to earn it. And when he described the room of grace, where it meant, and that road of, he described the road and the room of grace being an area where you trust God. I mean, it was really like chains were taken off of my heart, or like a big stone was removed. I mean, it really brought a lot of freedom. And so I started sharing that. I started, telling people, hey, this really helped me. And that's kind of from my end how it kind of spread, to other people.
So cool. I'm so excited. Thanks for sharing that. That is a huge, huge thing. And thanks for sharing that resource. So you guys whoever's watching this can go and get that book and have hopefully have a similar experience if you'd like to, if you feel like you're resonating with what Chris was sharing, like that you are just kind of trying to earn God's approval and it just doesn't seem like it's working. It just keeps getting worse. Maybe there's an answer for you here. So that's super exciting. Thanks for sharing. What's the book's name again, one more time?
It's called Two Roads and Two Rooms. And then a secondary book came out that's kind of more, goes a little more in detail, called The Cure. And it's written by John Lynch. And I've read both of those books a multitude of times. And to be completely honest, the more I read them, the more helpful they become. It just seems like at different seasons of my life, the truth in those books just connects with me even more. And sometimes I need to go back because it's really easy, at least for me, to kind of get back in that pattern where I'm trying to earn something with God instead of just trusting Him in my life and trusting what He's already done.
So good. It's the gospel, you guys. It's good news. It's not bad news. Okay. So your part of this was when you started to intersect with Chris, and can you share your part of things and how, where you started and how this experience impacted you, how it went?
So I give Chris the book. No, I'm just kidding. No, quite the other way around. But you can keep going. Okay. Yeah. Our little baby just woke up, so she's gonna go check on her. I say she's not really little anymore. But I guess she knows this part. The As I said earlier, I guess I did not go to I wasn't like really super involved in church before I was 18, I guess, other than that little stint in middle school. And I remember graduating high school and think in kind of long story short, meeting a friend who helped me start seeing I've always appreciated church and liked God and Jesus and everything, but didn't really like follow him or know what that exactly meant. And basically my the summer right after I graduated high school was first year I started kind of exploring that more. And like make that part a long story short, I guess I kind of felt there's a hole in my heart and my chest, and was like, man, I need to do something about this. And started going to church with a friend, and then was invited to a camp, which obviously, as you said, we were in Panama City. I was in Panama City. All of that for me, I was the whole time in Panama City. So I basically grew up there since I was 8. Um, but yeah, 18, right at the end of summer, July, I went to camp at First Baptist. And I remember we were up in Tennessee, Oklahoma, and somebody said, first night, if you really want to know if God's real or not, you just need to ask him. But when you ask him, you need to make sure you mean it. Like if you really mean it and you ask him, he will show you. And I remember getting to a point like, all right, like I'm not so sure about these things anymore. And right before we got to like this uh worships, like the first full day worship set, worship night, might have been the second full day, either way. I remember just like, God, like I've looked at a lot of stuff, and if you're real, I need you to show me. And best way to describe it is there's a verse from Revelation where Jesus talks that he'll come to your door and knock, and if you answer, he'll come in, he'll eat with you. And best way I can describe it is I just to my heart, my mind, I as real as we're all here, Jesus kicked open the door to my mind and my heart, and it was just like, hey, here I am, and showed me how he'd been there my whole life, getting me to that point right there. And from that point on, I was like, God, I'm in, I'm following you. Now I see you. As the song Jesus paid it all, like he washed me clean right there. And at that point I started following him. Went back to Panama City, back home after the little camp week, and started like, I got like wherever you are, whatever you need, I'm in. Um, started trying to do funny enough, I was excited about youth group. We had a youth camp all week. We're all talking about youth group. First week back, like, hey guys, if you graduated this year last week to be here with us, you need to get out. You're going to college, and so go to college. We have a college group, and you go from like youth group where there's like a lot of intentionality, a lot of focus, and all these things. And I say that as like a person who I got like 1 week of it, and then like one dose of it on Sunday morning, and go to like just an old person. Basically, it was college group. There was not like old people, but it was like old person style, where it's like show up and it's just like, oh hi guys, and then see y'all next week. And I was like, man, I thought we'd be doing like a lot more, and this is interesting, and from there it was like, all right, like we need to share. And I remember coming back and calling like everyone I knew, telling everyone I knew, like, hey, have y'all heard about Jesus? Like this is crazy. And might need to take up a little bit here. I'll get to where we're at with that. You're but I just remember I remember telling some friends being upset in high school, like, hey man, like, dude, you need to come to church. Have you ever heard about Jesus? And then being like, yeah, I've been going to church since I was like 6, and yeah, I know Jesus. And I remember like being mad at them because I was like, dude, why didn't you tell me? Like we played football together for 4 years, and you never told me once about this. You never invited me once. Like you never made this clear. Like what the heck? Yeah. And uh virtually over the next few months, started helping start like the college, like turn the college Sunday school into like a college ministry. In that time, God called me to ministry, which I remember I not as bad, but I had a really bad stutter. I still do sometimes, mainly because of ADHD. My mind goes faster than my mouth, and like a lot of other little things. And just like God, I'm not a good speaker, not a good talker. I remember sitting in service one day God just pointing out to me like, hey, I used a donkey, and that's something Moses or Moses is like, I'm not one. He's like, hey, well, if I can use a donkey, I can use you. And I'm like, that's a good point, I guess. And so, one of the actually the I think he was at the time Shane was when you came back. Shane was like the interim youth pastor, I think, if I remember right. Yeah. So Shane Booker, a good friend of ours, was there in past the interim youth pastor at the time, as they were kind of in between things, and helping me start that process. And then shortly after that, Chris came over, became a youth pastor that summer, like the next summer after coming to the Lord. I started interning at the church, just as like purely like, and I think honestly at that point when I started interning, it wasn't even like, hey, would you like to come intern? It was just like, hey, you're already being an intern, you're just here all the time, like we'll give you a title and like start like whatever, I guess. And so I was just like always there, and so I started entering that turning, and then after that, I think is when like you officially came back as a youth pastor, and I switched over from doing a lot of stuff with like just doing a little bit to help the youth group out, and like doing a lot with the college group to like, hey, I want you to actually do like a lot in the youth ministry, and eventually, um, Shane was called away to New Orleans, if I remember right at the time, and then Chase, who actually is from Dothan, came over, and then the Stems took over college, and that was, I think, when you introduced us to the Cure. I think is what you showed us first was the Cure, and I remember it was really funny at the time period for me. There was a lot of things where, which I don't know if you remember us talking about this or not, but there were a lot of things about the Cure, and I was there's another book, Grace Walk, that I think they both basically talk about the same thing. One does kind of like they said the allegorical type expression of it, and the Grace Walk's just kind of like, hey, here's my testimonial real life walk in the Grace Walk. So I was like, think I think the Cure is a really good way to like just kind of get that picture of it. But I was like saying the Grace Walk to me is like you said earlier, talking about like doing life together. That like the Grace Walk's a fun way to
Yeah,
say it in a
exactly.
manner of doing life together, And so where that really started, and I remember at the time it was like perfect time for me because I felt like when I came to the Lord, what Jesus had shown me was exactly what the Cure was saying, exactly what the Grace Walk was saying, and it was a really critical point for me because I was in that point where like the Cure talks about those two roads and two rooms, and I felt like I had when I came to the Lord gone down the right road of like following Jesus of the grace walk, and it was kind of getting to a point where it's like people were telling me there's they talked about putting on a mask right in the legalistic room, and I was starting to kind of be like, am I missing something here? Like I guess we need to do like this is weird. I don't understand it, and right at the point of like this crux point of like I might have started going into the other room more than I should. And started thinking that's the room we're in. It's almost like you snatched out. Like no, you've been the right one. Come back. And that's from there. I was like, okay, cool. This is the confirmation I needed that I haven't been crazy. And
Yeah.
started just having fun, sharing that with the youth and doing a lot of cool stuff in Panama City before we were all called to different places.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it is so, I just love that you came in with, you didn't grow up in the church. And so you didn't come in with any like preconceived notions like I did into my walk with Jesus. Where it's like, there's like the gospel, but then sometimes we just add all these other things on top of it. And then yeah, we can get confused. Like, if I'm not going to church every Sunday, or if I'm not reading my Bible every week, or if I'm not, or every day, or if I'm not praying every day, like, oh man, God must be disappointed in me. And it's like, that's not what the gospel is. The gospel is that, like, all of these things are good for us, but that they're not what save us. Like, Jesus alone saves us. And to be honest, like, the gospel is if we never did any of those things ever again, then Jesus's blood was still enough. And I think that is anyway, you came into it with that understanding that like you weren't earning your salvation, and because you knew like you couldn't, and but then you got into the church like you were saying, and you were like, well, and you were like, well, uh, what is going on here? And I'm just so grateful. That's one of the reasons I wanted you to be here, Chris, is because I'm just extremely grateful to the Lord that He walked you into this understanding of His unconditional love and what the gospel really is um, at that moment when He did, because I think it was extremely important to Josh and his life. And I know it was important to many other people as well, but this is just like how it intersects with our life. And I'll just always be grateful for that. Oh, and yeah, I guess I'll share my part really quick. I met because it all connects. Like, yeah, you have impacted my life, Chris, even though we've only had a few conversations like face to face. But yeah, I grew up in church and I also had a ton of performance in my life, just a lot of things going on with that. And I've uncovered a lot of reasons why recently. But I when I really came to Christ after my sophomore year of high school, I remember um having like my first what I would call like it, yeah, I actually experienced like the presence of God while I was reading my Bible. And the Holy Spirit convicted me of my sin, and I realized how I had been sinning against my dad and my sister specifically was the first things he opened my eyes to, of just like how I had been treating them. And I was really grieved and like repented to the Lord and to my dad and my sister. And I think they both were like, I don't know what's going on. But I just like felt the conviction of the Holy Spirit, and I just was like weeping, like, oh my goodness. It was the story of the master who had, I think, two servants, and um, he forgave their debts, and then the other one went and was like, well, now you. He went to his fellow servant and was like, well, you still owe me this debt, and he was like holding it against. Basically, it's like a picture of God forgiving us, and then we can't forgive each other, and we're still holding each other's sins against each other, and that really convicted me. And so, anyway, that was my first experience with the really encountering God, even though I had grown up in church my whole life. I still loved him and I had a heart for him since I was little, but that was when I really had the conviction of sin. And then, um, yeah, but I didn't really understand the gospel, to be honest. I had that experience of like understanding my sin, but I don't think I fully understood like that Jesus paid for it all and stuff. And anyway, a lot happened in my life and I can go into it, but when I met Josh, I was struggling with a lot of interesting kinds of legalism. Um and I remember being really offended by his um the way he talked to God, and like the way that he was so chill with God basically, where he just was like, you'd pray and be like, call God like, your
Daddy.
daddy and like stuff like that, where you just, which is from the Bible, it means like Abba Father means like, it means like dad, base daddy, like it's like a term of endearment. And yeah. So, but you were so, I remember being like, what does he know that I don't know? There's something missing here, and I don't get it. And I also was really offended, but um, yeah, I'll share this part. I I at the time was involved in this with this prayer place that I think is really a beautiful place still. God changed my life a lot there. But it was one of these places where it was like their goal was to have as much worship and prayer going to God from this one location as possible. Like, and they would have like a schedule of like people would come in and pray on different, like, and worship and pray at different times. I had like a code that they let me in, and I would go play piano and stuff and worship with like either by myself or with someone else. It was really a good time for me, but also eventually started to become a time where it was more like I was doing it out of like a little bit out of obligation, and also yeah. And at that time, um Josh and I met, and he was like, do you want to do a small group together? And I was like, sure. Well, he asked me to do youth group first, and I said absolutely not because I was like traumatized by youth group. It wasn't whatever. It wasn't youth group. I don't know. I did it. I wasn't traumatized by youth group. Whatever. I was like, I'm never going back to youth group. I don't want to remember being a teenager ever again.
Also, point of contention. She said I asked her. I'm pretty confident it was her idea. Like she had mentioned about doing a small group, and then I was like, "Oh, we should do that." But
Whatever. I guess we'll never know. Long story short, we ended up, I guess, co-starting this small group that I thought that he was starting and I was the first member, but to this day he had thought it was us co-starting it. Anyway, we started a college ministry, I guess, kind of. It was a small group. It was not a ministry. It was a small group with college students, and we were college age at that time, kind of.
our peers that happened to be college age, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we were all a bit like older, like end of college years, whatever,
Early
it doesn't
20s.
matter. Early 20, yeah. So long story short, I'm trying to get to the point. We had nowhere, we couldn't figure out where to meet, and I was like, oh, I have access to this like prayer place, and asked, and they said we could meet there, so we would meet there, and there was this mural on the wall with I'm gonna go there. There was a there was a mural on the wall. It was really beautiful actually. But it was like somebody had painted like a really beautiful picture of like people work like of like I think it was like a nature scene and people like lots of beautiful yeah.
Just imagine like a Where's Waldo image, but instead of like trying to find Waldo, it's just a bunch of like angels and people in white clothing and like pearly gates and grassy fields, and yeah, it's like a Where's Waldo mural on the wall, but instead of trying to find a Waldo, it's a lot of like interesting Jesus Bible type things in heaven.
Yeah. I really liked the mural and
It was nice.
it was
Nice
it was it was nice. It was there was nothing wrong with it. Actually, it was really nice. But one of the people in the image was like the scene, can you explain it? The
The thing I pointed out that's always funny is, like I said, there's a lot of things in the mural, and there's one spot where there is a guy holding a lady up, and they are perfectly doing the Dirty Dancing pose, like, and it's like perfectly like, I mean, it's not Patrick Swayze, I guess, but it's somebody like, and like the girl is perfectly doing the like, like whatever thing, and so I had pointed out, like, yeah, look, it's like Dirty Dancing, and Becca did not like that at the time, at least.
I was so mad. I was so offended. I was like, this guy thinks he's a Christian. Oh no. Are you wanting
I
to
did
be
the
on the
same,
video?
Josh.
You know, Chris?
I would be the same way. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I get that song. I'm having the time of my life playing. Yeah.
That's basically what happened. I was like, I started singing, I think.
At the time, I hadn't even seen the movie Dirty Dancing because I was massively sheltered as a child. And I was like, well, that doesn't sound godly now, does it? Dirty Dancing. And like I was like so ticked. And then there was one other moment, that moment, and then there was a in the same prayer place, there was a picture of Jesus. It was like a painting of Jesus, but he was laughing. He had his head back and he was like full like gut laughing basically. And it was
That was
really
a really cool picture.
yeah. He um one second. Are you gonna look down? I'm trying to keep Zoe off camera,
I
but
got
I'm like, don't put my baby's face on the screen.
Can you blur it out in
I
post?
probably can. Anyway, she's good. We're finishing an interview, my love. A conversation. Yeah, so anyway, that moment, those two moments, the one with the mural and then Josh walked by, and do you remember talking about that one? I think you said something like, this is like my favorite, one of my favorite pictures of Jesus or something like that.
I don't remember it as well as you usually do, but yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's something. I mean, I do like that was a real. It was really. She's not lying. Like, yeah, it was a pretty good picture of Jesus, and he legitimately like his like head back, belly laughing, and it was just a really cool picture. And to quote Talladega Nights, like that's my my favorite Jesus is the laughing Jesus. So it's kind
Oh
of like
my
that.
God. No. All right, moving on. I'm just kidding. No, that was hilarious.
Give the full
I,
aspect of what
can
you
I,
hate back then.
hey, can I like say something real quick with that? That's something that for me, just that image was life changing. because I think I bet I'm not alone in this. I always kind of picture, Jesus just kind of looking mad at me, disappointed. Yeah, because kind of like you said, that legalistic mindset. Because I knew all the ways I sinned and all. I hadn't read the Bible all the time. I hadn't prayed all the time. I hadn't been whatever. And that image that he would be laughing and joyful. I mean, it was. I mean, I know it sounds kind of silly, but it was revolutionary for me because it totally changed the way that I saw God.
That's amazing. Yeah, it changed me too because can you hold her actually? All right, well, Zoe is gonna be on camera apparently.
Okay.
Are we gonna have her on camera? Well, we
You can
might blur her
you can
out.
blur on both,
If
right?
you see a blurry picture, it's my daughter's head. Hi, baby. Yeah, so that actually was pretty, it's okay, look. We'll figure it out. Yeah, it's okay. Hi. Thanks for being here. Zoe is my little right-hand woman. She like often shows up at very good times for like when I'm playing piano or whatever. Anyway, so yeah, that those two encounters or moments with Josh, and I also started to have a little crush on this guy. So I was like, well, I'm trying to figure this guy out, I'm just trying to scope it out. What's going on with this guy?
It doesn't help that in the midst of all that, as you know, Chris, I obviously will even now, to some extent, I can get very serious and like, all right, like here's this like deep scriptural point, and then like right before or after or during make a joke, and then go right back into like super serious spiritual things. So that was hard for her.
Yeah, all those things. I was like, what is with this guy? Why is he not serious all the time? And I thought you had to be super serious all the time to follow Jesus. So I was very confused. And then, yeah, so long story short, me and him ended up dating. And I think the Lord showed me I was wrong, basically, is what happened. Do you want to go get her a drink? Basically, the Lord was like, convicted me that my judgment of Josh was completely unfounded. Like I had been judging him for like, he's got something wrong in his relationship with God. And the Lord very clearly was like, no, you're wrong. And I was like, okay. So I started to just try to pay more attention to how he interacted with God and the way that he also in our group would talk a lot. He would share like openly like his I think like sin struggles in a co-ed group. And in church it's like I grew up in church where it was like, guys and girls aren't even really technically allowed to talk to each other. I don't know, it was like I got treated kind of like I was going to cause a lot of guys to stumble and stuff along my way as a Christian.
Just for existing.
Yeah, just for like existing. And I understand that now more, and it's okay. But yeah, Josh was different. He treated me like a human being, but yeah, it was just a different experience than I'd had with a lot of like I guess men and like guys in church. And so that was really good for me in healing. And also, so there was that. And then also like in the co-ed group, you just were like so open about um like what you're struggling with and just the grace of God. And like anyway, just sharing your heart openly, and it really changed me. And I was like, I gotta stick around this guy because I need to I gotta not lose whatever. I need to know what he knows. And the Lord graciously let me get married to him so that I could always be around it because I needed it real bad. I needed to know, I needed that I needed, yeah, I needed to marry you, honestly. And also, like, in dating, he had me read The Cure, and that book is what I think when we were dating.
I mean, I think I showed it to you. I didn't have you read it. Like,
Sorry. Yeah, because
you need to
My,
read it right now.
yeah, it was the opposite of everything I just said. He basically was like, "You're a woman, I'm a man, I'm in charge." Just kidding. Yeah, he recommended it and I read it.
You want to date me? This is something you need right now. You gotta read it.
Better or else. Thanks, Sozo.
Thanks, Zoe.
That's really nice of you. Long story short, I'll get to my point. Yeah, I read The Cure and it changed my life as well. The picture of, and so yeah, definitely read at least one of these three books, you guys, if you struggle with legalism and don't even know what that means. But if you're having like a sin struggle and you feel like you can't tell anyone because it's like it'll ruin your entire life and you'll be exposed as like a not real Christian, or because there's just a lot of that dynamic going on, to be honest, in a lot of circles where people are trying to follow Jesus, but we're kind of like, I have a, we don't want to, I don't know. I guess I won't say any of that, but yeah, if you're resonating with any of this, these books might be helpful to you. And, it ended up changing my life and finally, um, opened my eyes to the fact that it wasn't about me at all and like what I did. It really was all about Jesus and what he did. And to this day, like the Lord is just continuing to be super gracious to me um and to Josh, I think, where we're both just we've been able to actually we just had I'll share this. I think I'm supposed to share this. We had just had a conversation recently with with some friends of ours, and we were sharing a lot of our marriage story because we just had our 10-year anniversary last year in November. And we realized, like, wow, we've actually been through a lot of things. Like, we've both had quite a few, like, sin struggles, and we've shared. When we got married, Josh had this thing he said, which was no secrets, no problems. And I think that kind of stemmed from this, I would say, in a big way, was like, would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, it's like right, the room of grace, right? The masks them off. Like we're being open. Right. Scripture talks about like confessing your sins to one another. You know, darkness runs from the light. So if we bring the light, it runs away, and then we can live out who we're supposed to be.
Yeah. And so, honestly, I was just thinking recently about how grateful I am for you, Chris, for the Lord, the Holy Spirit, how he works, and how Josh and I's marriage was able to get started on a foundation of the unshakable grace of God, that there was nothing that we could do that would that would like negate what Jesus did on the cross, and that we were able to approach each other with open hearts. And it's been really hard, but sharing your sins with each other is it's the worst thing to go through, to be honest. It's like horrible. But there's goodness on the other side and there's light. I don't know if you want to say something.
I'd say, I mean, it's a hard thing to commit to, but
Yeah.
once you do, the healing and the peace, and like I said, I mean, I think in John 3, where Jesus talks about people like come into light, darkness flees, like those kind of things happen when you do that, and it's like as hard as it is on the front end, which is just your flesh and the enemy doing everything they can to say no, stay here in the dark with us. As soon as you decide to rip that off and let Jesus heal you, like and stand in the light, it is like, oh wow, the light is so much better. Like it was hard to get here, but boy, was it worth it. So
Good point.
Yeah. So I'm just really grateful for you, Chris, ultimately, and that's why I wanted to really honor you and have you share your story, and then thanks for letting us take time to share our stories too. Um and yeah, just I'm just really grateful for you. I know also you wrote a book, right? Do you want to share about that?
Can I say something leading into the book? Um,
Yeah, share whatever you want, literally.
if you hear this, I would encourage you, like when you go to a doctor and you're not sure what's going on, the doctor will start asking symptoms. Do you experience this? Do you feel this? Have you noticed this? If this is connecting with you, I would ask yourself these questions and just be honest. Do you see God as one, a disappointed dad? That if you, in the way you envision God is if you looked up in heaven, he would kind of have a frown or a scowl on his face because you feel like you've let him down, because you've sinned too much, you haven't done enough, you haven't read your Bible enough, you haven't prayed enough, you haven't given enough, whatever. Or another symptom you might experience, do you feel like God is like this really strict boss or taskmaster that it doesn't matter how much you do, you feel like you can never please him? I mean, and you find yourself sometimes getting exhausted trying to be as committed as you can, but you feel like you never please him. And then on your end, a symptom I would to think about, do you feel exhausted? Do you feel like, I've tried so much, where am I going with this? Why will it not work? I feel like I'm just failing all the time. I feel like I'm letting God down. um, if you experience those kind of things, there's a chance, I'm not saying that, but there's a chance maybe your relationship with Jesus is going from being a relationship maybe into more of a like a religious set of rules. And by trying to live up to those rules, you feel like God's disappointed with you, or you feel like, I can never do enough. And so the more I'm learning in this journey, I've talked to other people too. Those are some experiences they've had. And so I just relay those to you because I think a lot of people deal with those. And I think a lot of people deal with them in silently because that's hard to talk about, because it might make you sound like a bad Christian. It might make you sound like you're questioning your faith or something. You're not at all. You're just being honest, as Josh mentioned. You're coming into the light. And so I would just encourage you. I think nothing wrong with it. That might be one of the greatest steps you ever take in your life, is admitting that. And for me, it was coming to the point where I basically had to say, I can't, Jesus, I can't live this life unless you do it through me. Speaking of the book a few years ago, I'm just, I don't know if this is weird, but I always have thoughts circulating in my mind. And I started writing down these thoughts. And as Rebecca mentioned, a lot of times I'll share some of these on Facebook. And I just thought maybe God wants me to put these together kind of in a book form. And I never really tried something like that. And I worked on it for a lot of months and just put together some things I was learning. And I did a lot of editing. And I didn't want to like sell the book. So I've given out to a few people I thought that might help or encourage. And so it was a fun journey. I might do something like that again, but it was a neat experience to really try to and it was a challenge to put your thoughts, one, so that it makes sense, but two, also it's readable. Someone can read that and go, oh, okay, I kind of get what you're saying. So that was a neat experience.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. So there's nowhere that people can buy the book online.
If they want to, if they will send you information, I'll mail it to them. I don't mean this to sound negative. I'm just kind of like Paul says, he felt compelled to share the gospel. I don't want to put any charge on that. I just want it to be freely available to anyone that's open to it. And so if someone's interested, they'll get up with Rebecca. I'll gladly mail it to you or email it, email it to you. I'd be glad to do that.
Oh, great idea. Okay, cool. Yes. We can figure out a way to do that. But yeah, I'll put it in the description, whatever we figure out how to do that. So that you guys can get Chris's book. And also I will put his Facebook on the description too, because they really are so encouraging. He has a real gift with words and with yeah, he has a real message on his life, and he shares a lot of that on Facebook. And yeah, we'll just see what God continues to do. And yeah, I think you should keep doing that. Write more books. I think that'd be super cool. So stick around for Chris Love's unfolding journey as an author. And go click on the links in the description, and so that you can connect with his Facebook and stuff like that. And without I think that's good. I think we did it.
I was gonna say, if you have, you've heard the author of love, but have you heard of author love? That's
That's heard of daughter love, but this is the first time I've heard of author love.
yeah.
Dr. Love. Just kidding. Anyway, that's awesome. Yes, author love.
Author love, yeah.
That's a thing. That really is a thing. You are an author. Thank you so much for being here, Chris. I'm so grateful for you, and I'm so grateful for the Lord, the Holy Spirit working in you. And I'm excited to see how your journey keeps unfolding in the future. And yeah, that's all. So he is ready to go and eat some breakfast. So we're gonna go do that. Thank you guys for listening.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Chris. Thank you so much.